Well, hello and welcome. Welcome to another episode of the Imperfect Men's Club podcast. My name is Mark Aylward, and I'm here with my good friend, colleague, and co-host Jim Gurley. And we're coming back. We took a week off. Jim went on a vacation with his family, which we'll talk about a little bit because we're going to talk about the holidays here. We're going to talk about family, and we're going to talk about the notion that especially as we get older, there are more people involved in our holidays. And Jim has a pet saying that he likes that I like as well: more people, more problems. So, as fun as the holidays are, as you all know, the older we get, they stay. Hopefully, they remain fun, but they also get more taxing. They pull at you from more angles. There's more nuance. There's more relationships, more people pleasing, all of the above. So Jim, we don't need to focus specifically on your vacation, but welcome back. And let's jump into this holiday family, more people, more problems topic.
Yeah, well, let's do it. And I think it's timely because now that we're in our second season of the 5 areas of life, we call the flywheel of life.
Hmm.
This is a unique episode because we hit, I think, maybe all five in this one. But let's go through those, and then of course, our number one focus every episode is self awareness. And maybe this year was a little different because I'm much more self aware of these 5 areas of our life and these triggers that are going off during this time period. But yeah, more people, more problems, which means that if it's just yourself, you just have your problems. If
Hmm.
you add another
Hmm.
person, you have your problems plus their problems. You add another person, it's just a multiplier. It's life, and we can have some fun with it, but it also can be very, very stressful. It could be uh, yeah, people are heightened, right? Emotions are heightened in all levels. So let's go through these together, though, Mark. Let's start off with profession. Obviously, in our case, we're self-employed entrepreneurs, so we don't have to ask time off. But not everybody's like that, right?
Hmm.
And we'll just wrap up both Thanksgiving and Christmas as one because I think they
Yeah. Well, I
both
think
have expectations. Yeah,
to me, I think you also can potentially throw in New Year's, and then there's this whole
yeah,
idea of preparing for these holidays. It's like
sure,
you don't
sure.
just turn the switch on the 24th, right? On the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. It's like
Yeah,
there's a few weeks, maybe for some people, a few months of going, okay, what are we going to do? Who's
yeah,
coming? Who's cooking? Who's bringing what? All this stuff. And
yeah.
it can really kind of boil up in some of us, and some of us feel a lot of pressure. To
Yeah.
your point, I think, traditionally speaking, my mom did all the cooking. The women do all the prep and all the cooking and all the stuff. And it's like, well, I've seen from my mother to my sister to my girlfriend to my wife to my daughters, they all have, I don't care who they are, if they're a woman, they all have this pressure of presentation, right?
Yeah.
Whether
Yeah.
it's the quality of the meal or the
There's an
turkey being
expectation that
dry
women
or,
burden far more
so
than a
yeah.
guy, right?
Yeah. So and so likes cherry pie. So and so wants pumpkin pie.
Yeah,
So and so wants
absolutely.
apple pie. I don't give a fuck. Right. And it's like, well, they sure do.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the other thing I was thinking about is it again as we get later on in our life, you've had like you said, 50 something, 60 of these. They have, I think, a little less meaning than they did probably when you were on number 30, right?
Yeah.
So maybe what I'm just getting back to self-awareness, it's probably means a lot more to a 30-year-old than it does to a 60-year-old because it's such a part of their childhood. And then there's the blending of the family, so their spouses or potential spouses or boyfriends or girlfriends, all kinds of triggers and shits going off. That
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well,
we've seen this movie. That's one of my other favorite lines. Right, we've seen this movie, beginning, middle, and end. There's a
yeah.
bit of a
Yeah.
rerun
We're in,
going on for us, but not
yeah.
for them, right?
Yeah. We're in reruns for sure. Well, I think the another way of looking at it, it pops into my head is like, when you're a kid, you're just showing up,
Yeah.
right? Go sit at that table, go eat this
Mhm.
food, and maybe as you
Play
get
with
a
your
li-
cousins. Go
that's
to
right. Yeah.
your
And maybe
uncle's
as you,
house or aunt's
you
house, or
yeah,
yeah,
you get a little older, it's like, okay, now help with the dishes. Then you start
yeah,
to, your role evolves,
yeah,
right? At least as I see it in hindsight. And now,
yeah.
as a father of adult children and a grandfather, even though my grandson wasn't part of my Thanksgiving holiday other than a phone call, um, that's a completely different role. Now I'm
Sure
like,
is.
I'm funding this now. I'm part of the planning of this now.
Yeah.
I'm much more likely to be able to disappoint some people now. It's like, okay, the expectations are a lot different. But
Yeah.
at the same time, as a guy and being who I am, I don't know how you feel. I'd be interested in hearing your response. I really am not, I don't have a preference big time, like what we eat, when we eat, where we eat, who comes. I'm kind of going to go along with most of that. I'm not going to come up and say, no, we can't have turkey. I want fucking ham. I'm not doing that. That's not my nature,
Yeah.
but our roles evolve.
Yeah. But it also just talking about the logistics of things too, right? If you have two families, in my case, I'm married, so now we have to decide which family gets the main event, right? Or do you try to
Mm-hmm.
do two in the same day? And again, the word used is a complete clusterfuck. Is
Mm-hmm.
exactly what it is, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you think we'd figure it out year one, it'd be better year two, and just seems like year two gets even more chaotic and ridiculous than than the year before. So money. So how do you think holidays affect the money triggers? We'll wrap this up into triggers of these five areas of our life. But again, just to review that worldview, money, profession, people. We'll definitely get into that one, and career. So
Well, it's like from a money
no, I'm sorry,
standpoint.
health. I messed that up. Yeah,
uh,
health. So
That's okay.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I think from a money standpoint, it reminds me of this. You ever had one of your kids ever have a friend that got married in some exotic island, and which means now everyone has to pick up a flight, a hotel, a fucking dress. I mean,
yeah.
it's like, what's the burden? Well, depending on where Thanksgiving's going to be and depending
Yeah.
on where Christmas is going to be, money can be a big deal. You can drop a lot of coin if you got to
Oh
fly
yeah.
all over the place and buy other
Yep.
people's tickets and hotel rooms and rental cars
Sure.
and all that other shit. Or everybody just hops in their car and makes it over to your place because
Yeah.
that's the way things are set up probably when you're younger. It's a more
Yeah.
local thing.
It's the busiest travel day of the year, right?
Yep.
Uh, but
Yep.
both those days, but particularly Thanksgiving. So a lot of money's being spent for people to move around.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, which again triggers things. How about health? So how do the holidays season affect your physical and mental health? I would definitely say it affects my mental health because you
Yeah.
see how
Yeah.
crazy everybody is. So yeah, you become crazy, participating in the crazies. The crazies really come out during the
Yeah, they
holidays.
can. They can. I think the anxiety is probably a big one. Just, what's the expectation going to be? When you don't know what's going to happen, you're hoping for the best. You've seen the worst probably on a couple of Thanksgivings in the past. And you're just, the anxiety thing is a big deal. And then when you said the word health, I'm thinking, alcohol comes out during the
Oh yeah,
holidays and
that's
that,
right. Couple beers, all of a sudden start
yeah, yeah,
loosen up a little bit before you know it.
yeah. And then,
Conversations that escalate. You start saying stuff you wouldn't have said without being on your
oh
fifth
man,
beer.
yeah, Uncle so and so's tanked and passed out on the
Yeah,
couch, whatever. But then
yeah.
there's this other health thing, which is like now everybody has these dietary restrictions. It's like
Oh
I'm
shit.
gluten free and I'm a
Yeah.
vegan and I don't eat meat and like whatever, dude. Just put a bunch of stuff out there and get what you want and
But
shut
you're
the
right.
fuck up.
Everybody's trying to accommodate all these different
Yeah.
these conditions. Yeah. I don't remember it being that complicated. It's
No, no, no. And then the other thing we used to do, I don't know, but I don't know if this was a New England thing or not, is no matter what the weather was, there'd be a football game in the backyard.
oh yeah,
And
yeah,
when we would play tackle football in the snow and ice
yeah.
and when we got to 17, 18 years old, alcohol started dropping into that football game and then all of a
You're
sudden
playing football and drinking in the snow at the same time.
And then at some point, the
No
football
pads,
game
right?
stopped,
So
because it was just all the football game meant at a certain age was pulled hamstrings and,
yeah,
bruised elbows and stuff. So,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, the whole thing is an evolution, but I think the more people you add to it, I think is one of the things you brought in, and I
Yeah.
find that fascinating. The
Yeah.
more problems there are,
Yeah.
because and one of the things that makes me think, Jim, you ran your own business for a long time, and for a
Hmm.
period of time, you had people that reported to you that needed to do
Hmm.
what you said, and
Hmm.
you had processes in place and systems in place, and I did too. Thanksgiving and Christmas, you're not in charge of that, right?
No.
Like no one needs to do what you say. There's no
Yeah.
rules, there's no systems. It's a madhouse, you
Yeah.
know. And in my
But again, even
experience,
expectations during the holidays, right? Do you buy your clients gifts? Do you do things? I remember I would uh, I would buy all of my best clients really really nice gifts, but I would never do it for Christmas. I would do it as a New Year's um,
hmm
gift, and
hmm
they loved it. It was different than everybody else, and I decided, I had at one point had 200 dealerships, right? So I just look at the sales and go right straight to the best one,
yeah, yeah,
and then go
yeah,
buy them something for a couple $100 each.
yeah.
Let the other ones go. Not even a Christmas card, but, and because it was more meaningful, right? I put a lot of thought into it, and I'd take them out to lunch or I'd do something and really show my appreciation for the year, but not necessarily for Christmas. So that's it's funny you bring all these, and you're right, and the turkey bowls. Yeah, I remember especially later on because there was no pads and everybody would just beat the shit out of each other
Oh yeah, oh
in the
yeah.
mud
No,
or the rain or whatever it was. But yeah,
yeah, no,
pretty
it's
great.
fun. It's fun. But I mean, if we move the clocks forward and say, what about this past Thanksgiving?
Yeah,
I've got now, the stuff we just talked about was a more traditional kind of like there's mom, there's dad, there's kids, there's
yeah,
grandparents, maybe there's aunts and uncles, but it's this like nuclear family thing. And now, and I don't think we're unique, at least for me. I don't have a wife involved in this anymore. She's not in the picture anymore. I've got a grandson. I've got my grandson's being raised by his other grandparents, who I get along with very well. My daughters both have boyfriends. My son lives with me. It's
hmm,
like there's all this, there's nothing nuclear about this. It's disjointed. It
yeah.
takes on a life of its own. And then you have those adjustments to contend with, which was like, okay, I thought this was like a white picket fence and a nuclear family. I'm like,
No,
no, that was like fucking 20 years ago. That hasn't
yeah,
happened in a
I don't
long
think it ever
time.
existed. Right. So let's move on to these other areas. So we again we've already talked to profession. We talked about money. We talk about health, mental health, physical health. That's the other thing. Your physical health's not so great because you get off your normal routine. So that's not, at least for me. I don't like that. And then but people, and then in people we have two categories, men and women, because I do think it means a lot more to women than it does men. You touched on that,
hmm
and back to expectations. Them trying to accommodate everybody, and to, yeah, it's just again lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. uh, but the fun one, and we'll save this for last, is worldview,
hmm
and how the subcategories of our framework is politics, childhood, and then the subcategories of politics obviously is we refer to it as the red team and the blue team, Republican, Democrat, maybe some independents, but lots going on there, right? Depending on the family,
Well,
there's a
yeah, I
blending of
think.
those worldviews, and then yeah, childhood is your religion or your nationality. So there's traditions that are expected
hmm
year after year
hmm
that obviously get disrupted when new people, more problems come into the scene.
Well, if I may, just before we jump into the worldview, and I want to definitely jump into that because I think one
Mm.
of the things we kind of glossed over was we just had a presidential election right before Thanksgiving. So
Yeah.
but the men and women thing makes me think of like we woke up Thanksgiving morning and my girlfriend wanted to watch the parade. I'm like,
Uh-huh. Oh
yeah,
yeah,
have
that's
have fun with that. I don't give a shit about the
yeah.
parade. That's the last thing I want to watch. Like, what time does a football game start?
Yeah,
It's
that's right.
like so no, but what I did was I turned on the parade without and I put the sound on and I started cooking. And I knew that the football game, at least on the East Coast here, doesn't start until 1 o'clock. So I'm like, the parade starts at 9. I give her 2 or 3 hours of that. I don't have to watch it at all because I'm in the kitchen cooking, which I love to do.
Hmm.
Right. And as
Hmm.
soon as I'm done and the turkey's in and all the prep work is done, guess what starts? The football game. So
Hmm.
it's like, and when I went back to my childhood where I had 36 cousins on one side of the family, my dad's, and he's from a family of 11. And and then 6 or 7 of those were uncles, and they were all like
And everybody's Irish, right? That's the other
Irish
thing. You had some
Catholic
commonality.
athletes. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we dominated it's almost like the women just get in the kitchen and shut the fuck up. We're watching football, you
I
know.
see.
Now that's an over exaggeration, although
Right.
maybe
Right.
my mother and some of my aunts would say that's not an over exaggeration at all.
But the whole day was built around watching the football game, right?
It was for me. It was
Yeah.
for us back in the day,
Yeah.
and then, and I, not to, I didn't mean to grab the stream of consciousness there, but no, the worldview thing I think is, it's a big deal. I mean,
Yeah.
right before the recording, we were talking about some of the comments that were made that I think would fall into the category of politically correct. And you can't say this or you can't say that, or and these things come up at the dinner table sometimes, and sometimes they come up before the dinner table or after a couple cocktails. But it's like the red team blue team thing. I don't think anybody got away with not talking about that. I
Yeah.
don't know how deep it went on your end because you were in another country
Well,
and
yeah, that
just
was
before
one of the
you. But
reasons that I chose a different country, a different time zone, and different traditions. So didn't particularly miss all of it. In fact, my
yeah.
mom called me from the dinner table, and the first she said, "Do you do you wish you were here?" And I said, "Oh no." She said, "We miss you." And I said, "Well," and I was obviously playing, but not really playing. No, I don't really miss not being there either. It was 85 degrees and sunny, right? I was in
Yeah.
Cancun, Mexico. It was beautiful. And I have to say, I actually enjoyed not having all of the drama that goes with it. And it was nice. It was a nice Thanksgiving. And since they don't celebrate Thanksgiving in Mexico, that's where I was at.
No,
We
I'd
didn't
be
eat
I'd be
turkey.
I'd be very interested in your opinion on, was that part of your plan or was that just
Yeah.
coincidental?
Full disclosure, I think it was part of my master plan was to at least one last time have immediate family just spend time together without all
Hmm.
the distractions and all of the drama that goes along with it,
Hmm.
especially accommodating these two different sides. And since they live in New York and Chicago, the logistics to get everybody there was going to be a lot easier. So, but again, it's not over. We still have now here 30 days later, we have to deal with Christmas again. And
Hmm.
that's it's different and more people, more problems. So it's just got a new set of things. But that's a little more fun. We have a more festive one Christmas Eve in our family's tradition.
Uh-huh.
Big group, 35, 40 people at least, maybe
Yep.
more than that. And we do that at our house, and that's fun. And it's short, no dinner, and everybody gets to catch up. But it does have an impact. I think we forget, right, the impact that it has on um, let's just say younger people in their 20s and 30s where they look forward to seeing their cousins. There is a little
Hmm.
competition maybe going on, right?
Hmm.
And a
Hmm.
comparison, totally normal. That's part of being that age. And I do
Well,
think that they all look forward to seeing each other. And I also think it sets a standard that they don't want to have to uh you know uh feel inferior or feel like less than. It's called, and I think it's a healthy competitive competition when you're in your 20s and 30s to want to be the same or even doing better or equal to your cousins or your
oh, it's a
brothers and
big
sisters in that.
yeah, no, it's a big deal, and you see it sometimes. You see it kind of out of the corner of your eye, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's right in your face.
Hmm.
And that's like who's getting married, who's married already, who's got a kid, who's already bought a
Yep.
house, who's got the best car. How
Hmm.
many kids do you have? How
Right.
many
Their
kids do you
careers, all
have?
those things. Yeah.
Yeah, how much money are you making? All that stuff. And I think the other thing that strikes me is that whatever tradition you started, because like my family, for instance, my 3 kids, and I've been a single dad for many years now, 10 or 15 years anyway, 15 maybe. And so that tradition of having mom and dad in the house, and
Mhm.
that went away a long time ago. And then what happened was, over a few years, as the dust kind of settled, we kind of gravitated towards, well, what's our new tradition going to be?
Mhm.
And we
Mhm.
didn't really have one for a long time. We just did the best we could with what we had.
Yeah.
And it's not a complaint, it's just an observation. But what evolved over a period of time was my kids wanted to come to my house, and
Mhm.
they wanted me to have a tree, and they
Mm.
wanted me to have some lights and some stuff around. And that's not my, that doesn't come naturally to me. I have to be, that
Mhm.
I have to be coerced into that,
Mhm.
because, and this sounds chauvinistic, and it is, but it's like, that's what moms do, that's what wives do. I don't,
Yeah.
dads don't do that, you
That's
know.
not
And that,
chauvinistic. That's that. Yeah, you were creating some traditions, right? They were
yeah,
just
yeah.
your traditions. That's nice though, and you still is that kind of what the expectation is that they're going to come to your place or what?
They're coming home this Christmas. They weren't here for Thanksgiving. And when I told you earlier that we were on a Zoom call with all three of my kids, and the girls both had their boyfriends on the call, which I really enjoyed. I didn't know it was going to happen. I was quite aware of both of them. They've been dating for some time now, both of them, and they're nice guys, and we had a
Yeah.
really fun time. But we talked then after that about Christmas, and when they were coming and what the expectation was, and then I'm on the phone with my grandson's grandparents, and my grand and his grandmother, and they're lovely people, was joking with me that her husband, whose name I'll leave out of this, is like, he's complaining about, he's got to put up all these fucking ornaments now, and he hates that shit.
Oh yeah, very different when you have a young child, a believer still, right? Believer in Santa
Oh
Claus.
yeah, oh yeah,
That's a yeah,
yeah.
yeah. We do
Generations.
what's been fun, we've done tradition now is somebody like, I don't know, 35, 40 years ago bought a Santa suit. So every
Hmm.
year we pull this Santa suit out and we take it's again it's at our home. So we like, fortunately the weather's pretty good, so parts outside and the other parts inside. And so what we do is we take the kind of the new member of the family. Usually it's one of the cousins, boyfriends or
Hmm.
husbands or fiance, and we get him liquored up and then put the Santa suit on him, and that's our way to initiate him into the family. And it's a lot of fun
Yeah, that is fun. That is fun.
because the idea he gets, it's usually the guy in the corner not saying anything, right? And then we get them all this attention by getting them all liquored up, and my brother and I dress them up, put the Santa suit on him. Of course, it never
Yeah,
fits right. We get duct
yeah.
tape to tie the beard on, and then the kids all get excited, the young kids to see Santa, and
Well, you know what's funny about that too, because I we don't do that specifically, but I've been around that thing before, and some people that are shy, you put a mask on them and a
oh
suit on
yeah,
them, and they turn into a different person.
and throw some alcohol down their throat, and
Yeah,
yeah, and it's
yeah,
fun. Again, it's an icebreaker. Everybody's laughing.
yeah.
It's the kids are running around screaming because they're super excited that Santa's
Oh
there,
yeah, oh
and
yeah.
then they hand out some gifts and they leave and this goes. So it's a lot of fun. It's become a fun tradition,
Yeah,
and
one of the things that we did when the kids were young, when I was, married, and my wife was in the picture, and when the kids were young, getting these kids to go to bed on Christmas Eve, as you were probably is challenging. And so
yeah,
what I started doing is, I don't know what time, I suppose it was around 9 o'clock at night, because that was bedtime or just past bedtime. And I got this set of bells, and I would get myself outside. I would not, no one knew I walked outside. I would get
yeah,
myself outside,
and they'd
and
hear
I
these
and,
bells ringing.
and
Yeah.
I'd get in the bushes.
Hmm.
And sometimes I was just in a pair of boxer shorts. Sometimes I had a couple drinks in me, but I was like, I'd start shaking these bells,
Yeah,
and my wife at the time, her role was, "Do you guys hear that?"
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. That would do
dude,
the same thing. It's
they
fun.
they
They
went
just go crazy, right?
fucking nuts. They
Nuts.
went
Yeah,
nuts, and they would just beeline up the stairs and pass out immediately in
yeah,
anticipation. Like, if they got caught looking at Santa, everything would
yeah.
blow up. It was like it was so It was so manipulative and so much fun at the
Well,
same
and you know what? That is a very appropriate word. It just goes to show you how we prepare them. I used to say you have to in order to receive, you have to believe, right? So
time.
they get around 10 years old and they go, this shit is not real, right? But they have to pretend like they believe so they can receive. So it is kind of a mind manipulation of,
Yeah.
of a
Yeah.
young brain,
Well,
and
and
to
we
buying
had,
into it so they can continue to receive. Because if they
yeah.
don't, they don't
Yeah.
want it to end, right? So
Well, and then there's that, whatever that age is. So there's two dynamics that I remember. One was my eldest, Caroline, was 5 years older than Hannah. So she didn't believe in Santa for quite some time before Hannah copped
did she
onto that.
admit it, or she would just go along with it for a while?
She took a really responsible big sister role and protected her two younger siblings
Yeah.
from this lie that we all told our children.
Yeah, a
And
lie is exactly what it is. We're all in on it, on this lie, and we wonder why kids grow up confused.
yeah, yeah. Well, and then the other component for us, at least when I was young, was as I've told you before, my dad is a devout Catholic, and so
Yeah.
church was a big deal,
Oh
and
yeah.
God was a big deal, and the coming of of Jesus, the resurrection and all that was a big part of my
Sure.
childhood.
Yeah.
And then that kind of it didn't go away, but the celebration of it faded away over time. I still practice my faith, but not with the same rigor and detail that we did when I was a kid. So that was always interesting as well. And then talk about, as you get older, well, if what if your wife doesn't have the same belief system? What if half of the
Oh yeah.
family doesn't practice that faith? What if, which
Hmm.
is more likely than not, right? Not
Yeah.
everyone's going to be Catholic. There's going to be people
Yeah.
of different faiths and different belief
It's funny.
systems.
It also reminds me. Did you have midnight mass? Because that's what.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what we did, and especially like in our younger or late teens, early 20s, everybody would go to All Saints Church. That was the Catholic Church. Everybody,
Hmm.
mainly to hook up.
Yep. Yeah.
because everybody would get dressed up, and afterwards, hey, what are you doing? Let's go have a couple drinks. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it is also a fun tradition because, again, if you're away at college, everybody comes home and you get to see and
Yeah. And
each
it,
other
it,
and catch up. It's fun.
it becomes far more than just a religious experience as you get
Yeah.
older, for
Yeah.
sure.
And then the
Well, then,
fights again, fights as in a lot of emotion is built up. So you have a couple drinks, whether it's a family member or a rival. But yeah, so yeah,
yeah.
like I said, more
Well,
people, more problems.
and then to kind of wrap up in terms of like holiday season, and then we have this anticipation of the new year,
Yeah.
and in my experience over the years, the new year is always in some capacity a start over. It's everyone has some level of New Year's resolution, which is a combination of serious commitment to complete bullshit, right?
Mhm.
And it messes with my expectations of if there's guilt that comes in, there's anxiety that comes in, there's a little regret maybe that seeps in. It's like, well, what am I doing that I shouldn't do anymore, or
Mhm.
what habit do I have that I could get better at? And then that classic, you go 2 or 3 weeks into January and then you fall off a cliff, and
Mhm.
that's not true of everybody, but it doesn't end with Christmas for me. It
Yeah.
continues on through the new year.
But yeah, to your point, Mark, it adds to the anxiety, right? Where you realize the year's over, because it is. Once December starts, it's over, and now you're getting ready for next year. So it's just the way it is. But good
Well, I
stuff.
think
Until next week.
Yeah, I wanted to throw one more thing out there, and that was this idea of, and it just kind of struck me as we're concluding this, is this, wow, what a really good time to be able to figure out how to stay in the present. And to your point, like the year's over, well, wait a second, it's not yet. What about right now?
Yeah.
Like how can we stay in the moment every day during that holiday period, if that's at all possible,
Yeah.
instead of looking forward to the future or maybe regretting the past? It really is a very emotional time, and I think that
Mhm.
sometimes I forget about that, and then I wake up one day and I'm just feeling weird, and it's like, It's not weird, dude. It's normal. This is what
Yeah.
everyone goes through this shit during the holidays, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And as always, the hardest part is to have gratitude and appreciation for what we have, because there's no guarantee we'll all be back here for next year's, right?
Damn
And
straight.
yeah.
There you go. There's our ending right there. Thanks,
All right,
Jim.
Mark. I'll talk to you
See
next
you.
week.
Okay. See you.